Rhonda Boyle here. I'm with rhondaboyle.com, and I am your SOAR online community leader. And I am here today with some amazing guests, and we are going to talk about strengths-based faith communities and what it takes to build that out for you. If you're like most churches and faith communities, synagogues, parishes, and so forth, you have about 20% of your people doing 80% of the work. And you know that I know that that's really how it goes in most communities. So this is a common issue that most churches and faith communities face. So my first guest today, we're going to actually start off talking about some of the pain points that are happening. Now, let me just see if I can find the pastor. There you are. I'm going to bring you up. Pastor, if you can take yourself off of mute and let everybody see you. I want to introduce you to Pastor Lawrence Neeson. He is with Destiny Christian Center in Midwest City, Oklahoma. And in addition to being lead pastor, he is an international speaker helping to equip the church to be a relevant voice of prophetic influence in local, national, and global leadership, business, and faith communities. Welcome, Pastor Dude.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you, sir. Now, this is the truth, isn't it? That you and all congregations, really, in your experience, have the burden of the work and the service is among really a few. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So tell us what that looks like and what that causes in your community or in a faith community.
Well, of course, most people are familiar with the 80-20 principle. 20% of the workforce will do 80% of the work, whether that's in sales or whatever arena of life. And so in ministry and church, that's very much resembling where 20% of the people are doing 80% of the volunteering, 80% of the giving, 80% of really making us as effective as possible. And it just very, very much limits what we're able to accomplish in terms of expanding God's kingdom.
It really does, and it's frustrating for those who are working so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because they feel that burden, or they feel burdened by that because they don't know what to do to engage the rest of the community and, to love where they are like they do.
Right.
So that becomes an issue. So I have pulled some data from the research that has been done over growing faith-based communities. And so it is said that when they know their strengths and where they really belong within your community, that they are 10 times more likely to invite someone to come to church with them. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Such a sense of confidence that comes from knowing who you are and why you are that I think would kind of awaken that, causing somebody to be a lot more interested in inviting people into a forum where you feel a sense of confidence.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And they're so happy because they have found their place. They're so happy to introduce others in the hopes that they'll find their place within the community. So yeah, that's an exciting thing. Another little interesting statistic is that they are more likely, people who are really understand where they belong and what lane they need to be driving in their faith communities, that they are likely to spend more than 2 hours a week serving and helping others in their communities.
So interesting. There's an organizational cost to what we're talking about, but probably more significantly, there's an individual cost. And really, our world is diminished by the life we don't live and the difference we don't make in the lives of other people as a result of not really understanding the giftedness that exists within every person that's within our reach.
Right. Now, you have been working with your church community in this strengths-based organization, and that started quite some time ago with probably a team that started. Actually, I think if I'm remembering rightly, you used the Clifton Strengths Assessment with your team, your leadership team, many years ago.
Correct.
Yes, and now you're revisiting that with your whole community.
Right.
Yeah. So what kind of changes have you seen just in your staff? Let's start there.
Well, it's been interesting. We have a school and a little broader perspective of team. So we have about a little over 70 employees in our organization here. So we've integrated that into every angle over the course of time. And it's been really interesting watching the staff, just even in terms of communication. By the way, after we had your weekend, I had somebody give me a StrengthsFinder cup with my 5 strengths on it.
There you go.
Our intention is actually to get these for everyone on our staff, so that when we're sitting in a staff meeting having a conversation, we can just glance at those cups and know who we're talking to and what filter they're coming through. But that's been one thing that has helped us in our working relationship. We have a great overall atmosphere that is very conducive to family relationships within our team. We've all been working together for many years, actually, but it has really enlightened us to know kind of how everybody is functioning a little more effectively whenever we're having those interactions, conversations, and sometimes points of tension.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And points of tension is when the rubber meets the road, and now you're able to look at someone and not think that they're wrong.
Exactly.
But that they're just different.
Yeah.
Now, you have taken this whole year, to roll out a strengths-based environment within your entire community. And that program is called Fully Known, Fully Loved.
Right. That's our 2019. We pursue God for what we determine as a New Year's revelation rather than merely a New Year's resolution. So that is our 2019 New Year's revelation, and we're focusing on that all year long. And just the understanding that there's not anything about us that God doesn't know. He who knows us the best, however, loves us the most. So we're kind of discovering what that really looks like. And it's been amazing how deep that goes with people in our small groups and discussions and so on, just looking at how insecure we all tend to feel and dysfunctional we tend to feel because of areas of weakness. So it's very enlightening to start to see that actually giftedness comes with weakness on purpose. Giftedness comes with blindness on purpose.
Wow, very interesting. Now, you have had some among your people, like your congregation, you had an experience that I want you to share with a young woman who'd been part of your community for quite some time, and then she discovered her giftedness. And share with us what happened with that and how that came about.
Yeah, it was just so awesome to bring our entire congregation together on a Saturday for hours with you, and appreciate what you brought in that forum. And so many people, the light came on, laughter was abounding, information was very helpful. But at one point in that day, when you asked people to share anything they had gained, this young lady who I know and have been meeting with her, she's a teenage girl, and her parents, we've had a lot of interactions, conversations, so I know very specifically what they've been walking through. And so she took the mic and she stood up, which was very out of her element. She tends to be very shy and avoids being in front of anybody at all costs. But in that moment, she was so compelled by what had happened. She stood up and said, for the first time in my life, here she is 17 years old, for the first time in my life, I feel like it's okay to love myself and to like myself even. And I mean, I got emotional just hearing her. I'm emotional thinking about it now, just because I know what she's gone through personally. And it was just such a liberating morning for her specifically, but for all of our congregation, really.
Yeah, I have Holy Ghost bumps myself just remembering that moment and how she was surprised herself
Yeah.
at her own courage for standing up to with the microphone. And I had asked for those aha moments at the end, and she raised her hand. I was putting lots of people on the spot that
Yeah.
day, but not her. She actually raised her hand and wanted to contribute. So that's the power of what happens when someone discovers how unique they are and has that recognition that the world is not going to get what they've got unless they step into it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what a beautiful experience. Well, it's been fun working with your congregation, and no doubt we've got some more things to be done there. And here's one of the things I can't wait to find out from you at the end of this year, and that is that people who are engaged with their natural giftedness within their communities, they are likely to give 3 times more to their faith communities annually. So start to add up those numbers and let's see if we have change at the end of the day. I mean, really, that's the bottom line, or one of the bottom lines, right?
Yes.
For communities. So thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your perspective and story. We're grateful.
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, I want to move on, and I want to introduce you to my next guests. They are so much fun. And let me tell you, they are a couple taking Canada by storm. Let me introduce you to Barry Cohen-Butt and Elizabeth Korsky. They are the co-founders of Emergent Strengths Consulting and Coaching. They are, as I said, from Canada, and they work often with Catholic parishes to bring about higher engagement, to develop ministry leaders, and to build high-performing parish teams using Clifton Strengths. Where y'all at? Come on and open up your line and say hey to the people. Where are they?
We're here.
We're here.
There you are. Welcome. So glad to have you here today. Thanks for joining me.
It's great to be here. We're really happy. So we're happy to see this big crowd here, and we're happy to see some old friends like Richard. Richard, how you doing? A little wave to Richard. Amen. And so it's great to be part of this big community.
It is. And I am excited about what y'all are doing. You got introduced to Clifton Strengths at your church by someone who came in and they had been doing that for a while, and then they went on to do something else, and you caught the fire.
We caught the fire, all right. So a couple of years ago, we had somebody coming into our church who brought it to our parish. It went first with our parish priest, and he brought it to his office staff, and then rolled it out to the church in a more broad way. And we were quite inspired by it. I was, as well, as in the corporate world at the time, and took it to my office and rolled it out to about 50 of my staff at the time. Had some great success. And my organization thought it was a great investment, so they sent me off to be certified by Gallup as a strengths coach. So when I was in my training, I often said to my co-participants that it was my company's retirement gift to me, and it certainly was. So we're off and running on our own now, and we're really excited. And we started off with our own parish, as you know, as you just said. We took over from somebody else, and we're running with it. At this point, we've had about 130 parishioners have gone through the assessment and workshops, and we're heading into starting our third program, which is a 5-session program that we do.
Wow. Now give us, I know you do something unusual with yours. You help people identify a personal mission statement.
It's true. So there's 2 aspects of this, and I'll pass over to Elizabeth in a second about what she brings special to this. But what we do is, at the end of our 5-session program, we have people, as you said, develop their own personal strengths mission statement, and part of that is what is their calling? What is it they're to do? We know that our Clifton Strengths tell us how we do it, but we need to find out what it is we're going to do and how we're going to apply those strengths to something. And Elizabeth brought in a really unique thing. So Elizabeth, as we said, as people may have read in her bio, is just finishing off her master's in ministry and spirituality at Regis College here at the University of Toronto, and brings a unique element to it to help people discern what God is calling them to do.
I think it's absolutely important when we look at discovering ourselves, and we get that confidence, as Pastor Jude was alluding to with all the participants, is that you get really strong, really self-assured about who you are and loving yourself. And really to take it to that next step is, what do I do? We can't really know what we're going to do unless we enter that relationship with Jesus. As soon as God comes in the picture, there's who's going to guide us and give us that direction. If we don't create a relationship, then we start talking to ourselves. We start getting stronger. We start getting stronger in the sense that we think we can do it all by ourselves when we know that we can't. We need to have that relationship to help us guide us through who we are, what we're going to do, how it impacts other people, and go fearlessly, because we're not doing it by ourselves. We're doing it with the guidance that's most important to us.
Yeah. So the work that you do really helps people identify exactly where they're going to use their gifts within their community.
It's true. And part of that is that unlike the working world, where people have identified roles and responsibilities and know what's expected of them, when you come into a faith community, often our roles aren't defined, and we don't know what our role could be or what our title is. And so as part of our program, we try to move quickly away from, or not too quickly, but we move away from the sort of the Gallup Clifton Strengths language and themes to find out what people are specifically, what their specific talents are, their discrete talents within those talent themes. And then they can identify roles for themselves and the unique value they bring. And when they know what their roles are, that they've identified for themselves, what the unique value they bring, what their motivators are, then they can apply all those things to what it is that they've may have newly discovered what God is calling them to do.
I think what you found with the participants is they walk away saying, you know what? I really recognize that I'm a good mentor. I recognize that I build relationships. I recognize that I'm a teacher. And as they say these things, other people can take from that ministry work, service work, to help encourage them to work on those roles that they've identified by themselves. So that mission statement and the roles really come to be important for who they are. I'll bring up another, we talked about pain points in our community, and I think one that we often find in Catholic churches, especially busy Catholic churches, is that you go to Mass. You have this obligation, this drive to go to Mass. You're there on Sunday. You're committed. You can show up every Sunday. Your connection to Mass and to God is strong, but the weakness, the pain is you're not connected to the people in the pews. That's community. How do we strengthen our community? Even though we could have 100 people in our pews, we could have 5,000 people in our pews. Is that a community? And that connection of knowing who we are and then appreciating who's next to me sitting in that pew is key. And it's key in our program in building up who we are personally, and really appreciating that God brought these people not only in our parish, but in our particular group. Why are these people in this particular workshop with us? So let's appreciate them as the gift that God has given them to us. And now we start working with each other, encouraging each other, and our community is slowly building. That last point, building the mission statement, pushes everything over the edge to say, me with you together in this community, we're going to do something strong for our parish, for our community, and beyond, really.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that I love that with me together, meaning I'm bringing what I have to the table, you're bringing what you contribute to the table, and we can't do any of it without all of it. One of the things that I love will love to share when I'm in a community is the uniqueness of each person, the chances of someone else having the same top dominant talents in the same order as you is 1 in 33 million. So if you consider it from that angle, then if we don't get it from you, where are we going to get it?
Right.
We're not going to get it.
And we love the I think it's Psalm 121. Help me out, folks. 137. I don't know which one of the songs where it says, "We are fearfully, wonderfully made."
Yes.
That's where we come from, that perspective, and it's just knowing who we are and knowing that God knew us before we were born, and made us uniquely who we are.
Psalm 139, Wynn Jacobson.
139.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wynn. Thank you, Wynn.
Yes, and Yolanda says she loves what you're saying, Elizabeth, that the first relationship with Jesus is most important. Yes, and then when you're talking about the relationship with the rest of your community, that's Jesus with skin on. So there you go. It's all related. And Wynn is appreciating the recognition of her number one input talent that identified. Thank you, Wynn, that knew exactly where that verse was. So share with us real quick one more quick story or share about how you've seen an impact in your community. What tangible results have you seen?
So we're inspired by the story we just heard about the 17-year-old, and we can share a story with you. This was a surprise to us. We didn't know this participant intimately, but after our sessions, they wrote us a note, and in the note they said he said that he had been struggling over the past number of years and had been recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that he found that he had in his top 5, he had ideation, intellection. He found that during what he referred to as his highs, he was big with ideas and great things would come up. And then, but he would drop the ball because he couldn't continue it. And he didn't realize until he'd gone through the program that he didn't have to take it to the end. He could hand it off to an activator to take his ideas and make them into something else. And he also said that in his top 5, he had empathy. And he said that in his lower moments, he found that he was pulled more into his empathy talents. And he said that brought him closer to people. And so what he saw before as negatives and things he was trying to push down in his life all along, he now could bring up and celebrate as being all part of him. And he now felt more hopeful and more inspired to be who he was and deliver what he could deliver with the help of others.
Wow. And, I just think that's beautiful because he found renewed hope and purpose in his life where he may not have been able to see it. It was always there, but he was clouded by whatever it was that he was going through, this new diagnosis. So
that's exactly it. That it was that sense of hope that he had at the end of the session. I think our participants walk away very strongly spiritually planted. They appreciate the spiritual exercises that go through. It is a program that gives them a lot of hope and really that self-assurance that we want to bring up in everybody. And they walk away empowered, really empowered. It has been for us just delivering the program. We are blown away each and every time. We are renewed each and every time, and feeling stronger that this is the path that we want to take.
Yeah.
People thank us and they say, "Oh, you guys are so great. You give me your time. We're so thankful." We're so thankful for you to give us this opportunity to do what we do best as well. It's a gift to us that you give us by coming and working with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys have been great. I'm so grateful that you are up there working so hard, helping, bring transformation and change into the whole, I'm not sure exactly, you're in like Toronto and that whole, but you're all over the whole country.
That's where we want to be.
From what I'm seeing, that's right. Well, thank you so much for your service and contribution
Thank you, Rhonda.
Yeah. So with that, I can't wait to introduce you guys to my next guest. He is a mission engagement facilitator in the central region of the Southeastern District, LCMS. And he's also a certified executive life coach as well as a Gallup certified strengths coach. And he loves to empower everyday believers to discover and live out their authentic calling in Christ. Travis Guzzi, come on up and say,
hey, how are you doing today?
I am great. And wow, I just love this, that you love to empower everyday people to find their calling. And isn't that what we really are called to do in the church?
Exactly. You know, it's my father, he's Catholic, and he jokingly says it's easy being Catholic because all you have to do is pray, pay, and obey. And yet I believe that God is calling us to something more than just doing that, that there is a calling that each and every one of us have in all of the different stations or domains of life, to be the blessing that God intends to love and serve our neighbors, whoever God places before us today.
Yes, I'm sure you're right. And you'll have to tell your dad, Catholics thinks that too, right? So anyway, tell us, now you've been responsible for lots and lots of people taking this Clifton Strengths Assessment and starting to learn how to identify talent, natural giftedness in a really big area. I mean, like, thousands of people, right? Fill us in on that.
Yeah. When I first started, it was more with the congregations when I was a parish pastor. And so we started working with our members in our congregations as I've been doing this and bringing this to my ministries, and with great impact. I mean, people who were like, wow, this is so transformational. And I not only see how my talents can be used in service in the church, but I can turn around on Monday morning and I can start living that out in my workplace and in my family. What I'm doing is I work with our district in our central region, which is Virginia and Southeast Maryland, and we're helping pastors, we're helping church workers, we're helping congregational members all throughout the region be able to discover their strengths. So, for example, we have a congregation here in our region that we're just getting ready. We're identifying strengths coaches in the ministry. After we get the strengths coaches trained, we are going to take 40 of their leaders through Clifton Strengths, and then we've got 2 strengths summits planned within the ministry where we're going to take about 60 each and then hand them off to coaches afterwards to do some work and help them understand not only what this means for their life, but how they start living it out in their different callings of life.
Wow. Now, tell us how, I mean, you've done youth too, right? It's not
Yes.
just these leadership teams that you've worked with. I think you work a lot with emerging leaders, youth. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, especially for young people. The book David Kinnaman, You Lost Me, really talks about with millennials and emerging generations that one of the things that we've really failed to do in our discipleship with them is understand how faith and really kind of what we do on that 1 hour on Sunday morning that we call worship or church translates to the rest of their life. And so to be able to take young people and help them understand how their faith connects to what they do every day, and really it's an identification of their God-given talents. And when they understand how God has uniquely gifted them as part of his grace as much as salvation, and we help them understand what it means now to be the blessing that God intends using their strengths to make an impact, that it really brings it to life. So I've done, like, for example, we have a church that I'm part of here in Williamsburg, King of Glory. We've taken 30 youth out to a retreat out on the beach down on the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And we do a whole weekend experience with them to help them understand. And especially for young people today, I think so many, my son is about to go to college. They are afraid of what's to come or what future, what college to go to, because they don't know what they're really good at. And so it's really kind of a paralyzing time. And to me, wouldn't it be great if we could help young people understand what they do well, that when they go to college, they're not going to try to find themselves, but they are going because they know who they are and they're looking for the right school and program to live that out. Also might save mom and dad a few nickels if we do that as well.
Yeah, just a few. So one of the things that I really appreciate about what you're sharing here is that understanding their talents and gifts within the church transfer into the world at large.
Exactly.
And I think that this is where there can be some confusion around whether or not we need a spiritual gifts inventory now, because that spiritual gifts inventory has gone through a lot of churches. The issue is that it doesn't translate well out into the marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. There's, spiritual gifts are nice and all, but really the difficulty is a lot of people just don't know what it means beyond the church. And for me,
Right.
again, that's what the greatest thing with Clifton Strengths is. We're honoring God's natural talents, his workmanship and design, as we hear in Ephesians 2:10. But it's helping understand how those are lived out. Actually, it's Alan Hirsch, who's a missiologist, who would actually say, with the exception of the manifestation gifts, obviously those are kind of supernatural things going on, of which it's really hard to do any kind of an assessment for those. Working in miracles, you can't really assess for that. But with the rest of them, that he would advocate that they're really God-given talents that are just supernaturally charged for the kingdom and applied to the kingdom. And so what we're doing by helping people understand God's talents, the natural gifts that they have with Clifton Strengths, is we're honoring that first article, gifts of creation, and now beginning to see how they can be used for God's purposes within the church and as the church out in the community to be the blessing that he intends us to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, it's so interesting because like I'll see people who have a job out in the secular world, like teaching, let's just say, and then they don't want to teach at the church. And it's like, hold on a minute, you're gifted. This is how you're wired.
Yes.
But what they're seeing is the transfer of the problems in the school system that they have to deal with, having to come over here into the church population. And so that, they're not looking at their gifts in the gifted sense, because it's kind of it could be potentially being beaten out of them, in the world at large through no fault of their own.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes too, it can be, are they really passionate about a certain area or place of service of how their gifts are being applied? Some, maybe they don't love teaching kids, but boy, they love teaching adults, or they love teaching about computer science, whatever it might be. And so it's really making sure that we match talent with also core motivation and passion. And it's when you bring those together, I think that's where we find that sweet spot for service and ministry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So just to reflect on my own for just a quick minute, my experience, I was introduced to Clifton Strengths through my church, and they brought it in as a service, a stewardship program rather.
Nice.
And so we had small groups that we met with, and then at the end of 9 months or so, we had a big ministry fair. And so people could go and now learn, they had learned about themselves, and now they could go and learn about where they might fit within that ministry. And so I think that's always a good opportunity to get to re-engage people, because here's part of the problem. You have that come to Jesus moment where you have joined your new congregation. You can't wait to get involved. And then the deacon grabs you. And he says, come on, we need you to come teach 4th grade boys. And you're like, okay, I'll do that. Whatever it takes. I'm here. And you get in there and you hate 4th grade boys.
Exactly.
You just don't, you have no gift at, you're a finance guy. What are you doing helping working with these kids? And then you get in the wrong job. And when you finally find a way to get out, then you sit in a pew for 20 years worried they're going to call on you to do something else, instead of figuring out what it is at the beginning that you are called to. Where are you called to serve?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is the opportunity that we have as faithful people in the church to bring something to build up the church that can then transfer out, which to me is as it should be. Can I
Exactly.
hear an amen if you
Amen
agree?
on that. I definitely do.
There you go. Well, so tell us, I'm just wanting to hear one more story of empowerment that you know, that you have witnessed from bringing in a strengths-based approach into one of your communities.
Yeah, and actually, I'd like to tell the story of one of my first coaching clients, kind of following up on the themes of young people and empowering them, not just to what they do in the church, but be the church. His name was Dave Drever. He's given me permission to share this story. One of my first coaching clients about 10 years ago, when I first was entering into coaching and learning about Clifton Strengths, he was a 23-year-old Hollywood producer doing Snoop Dogg videos and not finding a lot of redemptive potential to what he was doing. Really kind of found himself living on the edge with his faith a lot and wanted to do something more for the kingdom where God had placed him in Hollywood. And so we started coaching, helping him find out his talents. Number one was achiever. This guy has worked harder than anybody I know, but has really taken his gifts and his talents and seeing that he's called to be a blessing. And it really changed his orientation, where he really started being a missionary in Hollywood with people that you and I will never connect with or talk to in life. He started working with this kind of pay it forward model of not the typical Hollywood, what can you do for me, but what can I do for you, and serving people. And it really opened up a lot of doors because people are like, who in the world are you? From that hard work that he's done and really seeking to be the blessing where God had called him to, he has started a new faith media company called Freely in partnership with William Morris Endeavor, the largest talent agency in Hollywood. And last week, they launched their first video project. It is called The Long Goodbye. It's the Kara Tippett story. And it is #1 documentary on Amazon. And so really great to see this first project out of the gates, really making an impact and getting a lot of great reception. So just great to see this young man step in and really use his talents and his gifts to make a difference, both for the kingdom, but just with the people he came in contact with each and every day in Hollywood.
Wow, what an amazing story. And especially the way that his talents within the church transfers into an area that we all know could use a little help.
Yes, exactly.
Could use a little Christian witness, right?
By the way, somebody asked about Kara Tippett. She was dying of cancer and documented her journey. That's what this documentary is.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting. We'll be looking that up. So, Travis, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So let's keep moving. One more guest I have for you today is my friend and peer, someone I consider a friend and peer, Kathy Gattil. She is a seasoned strengths coach and the best-selling author international best-selling author of Turning Talents into Strengths, Stories of Coaching Transformation. She has held many business and community leadership roles, which have prepared her for working with congregational leadership. Kathy Gattil, come on up and say hey to the people. Where are you?
Hey there.
There you are. Look at you, lovely. We're so glad that you're here today.
Well, I really, I am very honored to be here, but I really want to give a shout out to Barry and Elizabeth and Travis and the pastor. It's just so inspiring and so heartwarming. All of us trying to build the kingdom, you know?
Yes.
And to be able to empower other people to realize they truly are a gift from God. And Barry mentioned Psalm 139:14, and that's how I open my workshops. We are fearfully, wonderfully made. And so I'm really happy to be here to talk about strengths and faith-based communities. And
Kathy, just real quick, do you find that most people initially really believe that they are fearfully, or is that just like a talking point?
No,
And then to me,
hope by the end of the workshop, they believe it.
yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. And, just everyone sharing a story. Well, mine is not with a young person. It's with an older person who really felt like a sinner. Well, aren't we all? Really felt disconnected from a faith community. And I actually had an opportunity to coach this person one-on-one. And by the end of our coaching season, I would say, this woman realizing I had forgotten that I really do have something to offer people, and that I really have a good soul, and that yes, I've made choices I'm not especially proud of, but I know I can move forward, and I know God loves me. And to me, being able to make a difference in someone's life as a coach, there's just, that's why I'm here. What legacy are you going to leave behind? And for me, while I have done a lot, and I still do go into businesses and do workshops and do executive coaching, I started doing this at my church. I kind of pivoted away. But I will tell you, when I pivoted away, one thing that really spoke to me as a coach was being able to plant seeds that, Christ loves you, and you have value, and, you are a blessing to me. To me, being able, maybe not being in the church community, there have been many times I felt like I've had the opportunity to really plant seeds with the people that may not even open a door or open a window at one time. And I just try to crack it a little bit. But most of my business, I help all churches. I do a great deal at my church. I too am and that's where I started. Our pastor wanted me to be, I was a lay leader, and wanted me to go through Gallup training. I actually put myself through the Gallup course, but that's where we started. So we are really trying to cultivate communities of discipleship. We're really trying to inject a spirit of evangelization, as well as having people understand what way they can contribute to our faith community, to the community at large.
Mm-hmm. Don't you think that's what people really want, is to give and serve and contribute? I mean, when they come into a faith community, they're looking for that sense of belonging.
Definitely. And, we are the 5th largest Catholic church in the country. We are a very large Catholic church. And I started with this church when there were 75 people. And we now are up to over, I think it's like 4,500 or 5,000 families. So it's very large. How do you make a large church feel small? And having connect groups, and many of the different ministries that we have, what I have been able to do is go in and give a workshop, have them all do their talents, and be able to see as a ministry or as a council or whatever, as a Sunday school or a connecting group, how they work well together. And I loved what you said earlier, Rhonda. Sometimes it's just understanding we're different. We have a lens that we see out of, and that people are seeing us from. And having the appreciation that of what their talents are from the Clifton Strengths perspective, as well as, being a child of God. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that we all, we all know that we're uniquely, fearfully, and wonderfully made, but in our minds, somehow that means we're weird.
Yeah, and
like we don't really get, hey, no, listen, you really are all that. and it takes people seeing it in black and white sometimes.
Well, not only seeing it in black and white, and then of course seeing it in their everyday life that we do as coaches, trying to get them to see that, but being okay with that.
Yes.
And that people that dance to their own beat make things, I don't know. I think rejoicing in who you are, if as a faith-based coach, if I can help someone in that capacity, I feel that God placed me in their life for a reason. I don't believe in, my connectedness is high, but I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in God incidents, and I feel very blessed with the work that I get to do. Now, I don't just work with Catholic churches. I work with a lot of churches, and many times we celebrate what we have in common, and that is sometimes it's just we have God in common, and sometimes it's it's the Savior. So I really love what I do.
But it's always helping people engage and be present and develop those relationships within their community, because that's where we're going to be strongest. Is if we are, a lot of times people will leave their faith community because they aren't fed. How many of you have had that? You heard that? Oh, I wasn't fed. Well, the reality.
Stop and ask, what are you doing? I mean, how are you? Are you? And that's why I love the time, talent, and treasure that Clifton Strengths really can bring to an organization, can bring to a church. To your point, you may not like working with fourth graders,
right.
But how wonderful to know I really have great analytical skills or whatever. And I think working in this area in church administration or in leadership organization, whatever, being able to identify that. So as we've said before, we're not pew sitters. Actually involved and being a part of being part of a faith community means rallying around other people too. It's not just feeding yourself. At least I don't believe it should be.
Well, and I was going to say that when we complain and we leave because we're not fed, the reality is likely that we're not serving in an area that we want to serve in. Because if you are fully engaged in your faith community, service is part of it. It's what you want to give of your time. You want to give of your treasure. And those are the Growing an Engaged Church, which is a book by also offered by Clifton Strengths. They say that there are that book talks about the 3 levels or the 3 hallmarks of engagement, which include giving up. You can tell people are engaged. They're going to give of their time and talent. They're going to give of their treasure. And the third one is they're going to invite others.
Right. And again, we're here to build the kingdom. That is really our job.
Yes, but you're not going to invite others if you're sitting in the back of the pew. You don't have any reason or anything that's exciting you or engaging you in the community. So being able to identify those gifts in a way that transcends church can really help people identify where they need to be serving.
Absolutely. Yes. One of the books that our church is actually using in not just Growing an Engaged Church, but it's called Divine Renovation. And they really, really, and the people from Canada, Barry and Elizabeth, I'm sure you're very aware of that book because we're very involved in that movement.
Is that by Father Mellon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Malin.
It's fabulous. We do Alpha. I don't know if y'all do Alpha. That's a non-denominational program, which is.
Tamara's a Baptist. She says she loves that book. you know, this is where we can all come together, y'all. We just all want to do.
Celebrate what we have in common.
That's right. So let me ask, Carrie Ann has a great question here. She says, as a Gallup certified coach, do you find the congregations want you to share your coaching gifts in service and not pay you? It's a question for all panelists.
Okay, so I'll just pipe in because I had my last corporate job. I was a VP of marketing and development. And when I left that job, I needed just some time because I was really burned out. And I started doing volunteering. And that was when our pastor had us, had lay leadership and staff come on as, go through coaching. And it was through, it wasn't through Gallup at the time. It was someone who used to be a teacher at Gallup or an instructor. Anyhow, as a result of that, and that was 8 years ago, and because I have a new career, I will not charge my church, because if it had not been for that, I wouldn't have this new career. However, so anyone coming to me one-on-one, and then I have done workshops for my church, and they pay for the materials, and that's all I've ever asked of them. I give my time, I give, my talent too.
Yes, but that's in your
other churches. I do workshops. I do one-on-one coaching. I work with a lot of ministers who need, they need coaching on their strengths and aiming them. They need leadership, maybe public speaking, maybe boundaries. So those are things that I will go in. So to answer your question, yes, other churches definitely pay me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've had them all pay me as well. So, Carrie Ann, it just depends on your level of involvement in the church, I think. Churches are hungry for good material, yes. And there's other groups and organizations within the church, Carrie Ann, like women's ministry, men's ministries, other ministries that are within the church. And one other thing, too, I have found is that oftentimes, whereas a church will not have the financing in the budget, they will offer a stipend, and that's often very generous. You'll be surprised. You may be surprised,
yes,
at how generous that is.
One of the things that there are several other churches. I mean, I work with a lot of churches, and I know Richard has used this before. I don't know if he uses it anymore, but one of the programs that I do at another church is from the Living Your Strengths book, but it's the Journey. And it's a 7-week program. You add 1 week for orientation, but it's there's video. It's very well laid out. They have a Protestant version. They have a Catholic version. You have to really look for it on Gallup Store, but it does exist. And the same authors that wrote Living Your Strengths.
And that's the book I got introduced to.
Yeah.
Through
So
Living Your Strengths Journey.
It's really a very you have to have strength champions, especially if you're not being paid. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think it's very important to cultivate them as well. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, so Carrie, and we can talk about that again, like on another call, as far as churches, working with churches from a coaching perspective. Because there are some opportunities in churches that you want to make sure you're catching. So really, yes, that is correct. When the authors are Kurt Liesfeld and Albert Winsman. So be sure to get that. In the Strengths Journey, do you prefer participants to know about strengths prior to attending? Polly is asking.
Part of the very beginning of it is having the assessment. And, and then going through the discovery, and then and I love it because there's a lot of scripture involved in it as well.
Yeah. Great.
And prayer is a big part of it too.
Good. Excellent. There are lots of ways for you to incorporate strengths within your faith community. And just to close out here, I wanted to invite you to come and join the coaching movement at SOAR.com. We are a platform of coaches that are available that offer faith and family coaching. And so you can actually search for a coach. If you don't already have a coach near you, we have coaches will travel, right, Kathy? I know you guys, all of you are do some traveling in your coaching. So if you don't know of a coach, be sure to either check back with me, and I'll leave some details in the replay when I forward that out so that you have access to information. And so I just want to thank my guests today for speaking. Barry and Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us from Canada. And Travis Guzzi out in Virginia, thanks for joining me today. And then let's see, who am I missing? Kathy, that's it, because we had some techie issues. Some people had some trouble getting on. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me and for joining the SOAR.com online community. And we'll be sending more great training for you so you can be more, do more, and have more in your life. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon. Appreciate you coming today.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.